Hey everyone, welcome to the Beauty School Bobbi podcast. I am here with somebody that started all of this with me. Steve Reiss is here with me today, joining me for the second time on the podcast as one of my original guests. So he saw me with a weird machine, I think, or we did it over the phone. I think we recorded not even Zoom, just over the phone. And look at us now. Look at where we are.
Yeah.
2025. Steve, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for being on the show again. You were with a different company when we recorded before in a different role. But as we were just talking about, still doing the thing that you love so much, and that is getting and giving information about the beauty industry. So Steve, welcome to the show again. Thank you so much for being here.
It's a pleasure to be here. And I'm so impressed with everything you've accomplished.
Thank you so much. I like that you still like me, even though like in the beginning, it was a little rough there with the audio and stuff. We're still navigating that. So, you're one of my favorite people to run into and to see. So I'm just so thankful for this relationship. And I'm thankful that you gave us time today. So I know you are super, super busy. You're working with Pivot Point now. So still in Chicago, correct?
Yes.
And you are doing what with Pivot Point? Because your role is a little different than what you were doing last time that you were on the show. So tell us what your role is with Pivot Point right now.
My role with Pivot Point is really to support the industry. And in supporting the industry, obviously we support Pivot Point, but supporting the industry means being involved in industry causes that need champions. And that could be educating people about domestic abuse. It could be related to sustainability. It could be related to ethics. It could be related to texture. It could be related to diversity, a whole host of different things, but also getting information that the industry needs that because there may not be specific dollars tied to it, nobody else is doing. Mm-hmm. So I am very appreciative of the fact that Pivot Point, which is such a unique company, really gives me the latitude and permission and the support to do things that are important for the industry.
Yeah, Pivot Point definitely feels like once you are in, not a lot of people are on the side of the business side. They work with Pivot Point. They have Pivot Point in schools, but I've been able to see a lot of the kind of like the behind the scenes of how all of this works. And it is really interesting to see. I texted Robert Passage actually last week about the scholarship that is happening. And just like it is always when there's a good idea that I see, it's just like always from Pivot Point. It's always something really cool and different that Pivot Point's doing. And I think like you just said, it's for all. It's for the goodness of the best, like in the industry. It's not just about, hey, we want to sell textbooks and we want to sell this curriculum. It is so much more than that. And you can see it in the way that it's growing and just the things that they're getting behind. So I think you're such a perfect fit with them. And again, thankful that they're willing to put the energy and the time and all that into you as well. And keeping you in this industry, because your background in the industry has been a lot of different things. But landing here, I know that you were just saying, just kind of like feels right.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what it comes down to is that this is a very unusual industry. And before I was involved in beauty barber and wellness at all, I was in the electronics industry. I was in the packaging industry. I was in the fashion industry. I was in the hospitality industry. I was in a lot of different industries. And when I got involved in the beauty industry, I fell in love with it like most people do because the people are just different. People don't go to beauty school or get in this industry because I want to make $1 million. They do it because they're passionate about connecting with people. They're creative. They want to give back, a whole host of things, which are really important. They're really good people. And one of the things that's really special about Pivot Point is it's a third generation family business. Every member of the family who's involved in the business is a beauty school graduate. They're actually fourth generation because Leo Passage's father, who's the founder of Pivot Point, he was a hairdresser in Europe. and they're not in any other businesses. So it's not like this is a big corporation where we are worried about a lot of different things and people on the outside are telling us what to do. It's a company that understands that if we're going to be successful, we have to make all the people around us and our industry successful as well. And that's the enduring commitment of Pivot Point. And it's not a company that is walking around patting itself on the back looking for praise. It's a company which is quietly behind the scenes doing lots and lots of things which are important, and hopefully we're making a difference.
Yes, 100%. So tell me what you are working on right now. You've done a lot of research. You are really gaining and gathering a ton of information about what's happening and then where we need to go based on your findings in your research. So tell me what it is that you're focusing on right now. What are you seeing? And then in a second, I want to kind of get into what's next.
So I'll give you a background on some of the things we worked on recently. So you may be aware that Pivot Point is a founding supporter of Beauty Changes Lives. And with Beauty Changes Lives, we've been working on industry information education campaigns so people really understand what our industry is about and is it right for them, and getting the word out for a long, long time. I was working on this before I got involved with Beauty Changes Lives, actually. And the world has really changed, and people are looking at the college versus a career conversation very, very differently. And a lot of the stigma about going into a trade versus you could do better and you could go to college has gone away. Mm-hmm. So we're really looking to take advantage of that. One of the things that we did from a research standpoint is for the past 2 years, in coordination with Beautycast Network, Pivot Point has done research to find out how career counselors feel about our careers versus students going to college. And one of the things that the research has shown pretty dramatically is that the guidance counselors, the career counselors, but also parents are getting behind our careers now in a way that they never did before. So this is really a special moment for us. And the reason we did that research was because we needed to do that research because we needed to understand what was happening so we could appropriately craft messages related to that.
Yeah. So I like that action behind it too. I was going to ask you, so in that research and in that time, this is the cool thing about the reach that Pivot Point has is now of what do we do with that, information. We hosted a guidance counselor open house, at the school recently. And I was just like, just come in, like you can use it like on, one of your days, come in. And we treated them to a service. We're like, had time with them to show them the school. It wasn't like what's that marketing thing called where you sign up for houses and like timeshares? It wasn't like the timeshare pitch, but it was like, come in and we just want to show you who we are. And Steve, every time, and I had a call with the guidance counselors, the person who's like head of the guidance counselors in the state of Tennessee. I had gotten connected with her because my frustration, has always been like, they don't even know beauty school. Like they have no clue what beauty school is. So if somebody comes to them and they're like, hey, I want to go into this industry, who's giving them the information about the beauty industry, and so they're always so open and so excited to receive the information. It's like the guidance counselors want to be informed about it. It's just that they've gone the traditional college route because that is required of them to have their position and their jobs. And so I think it is really important that we're speaking to them, because so many times we've heard, when I first came to the industry, like I heard so many times people say, well, nobody encouraged me to do this, or they didn't even like going to a guidance counselor. Like you'd be more encouraged to like be an astronaut than to come into the beauty industry. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, great. And so I love that that's where your focus is. And that's what, the research that you've been doing.
Well, think about how empowering it is to the guidance counselor. In a lot of cases, they're working by themselves, for you to actually be able to share information with them that says, look, the majority of your peers agree with you that this is an up and coming, focus that you should be sharing with your students and with their parents. And I think that just accelerates the entire process. And one of the things that really allows Pivot Point to have tremendous amount of insight is we cover the entire food chain. We don't just work in the school market. We also work in the professional market. We work with brands. We work with distributors. We work with chains. We work with salons. And if you really want to understand something, you have to understand the entire food chain. You know, what's behind you, what's ahead of you. And that really informs a lot of what we do. And I'll give you another example. We did research on the generations. And one of the things we've found is that so many of the conflicts that are taking place right now in our industry are related to different generations. And the pandemic only accelerated the challenges between the generations in terms of use of technology, expectations, communication style, a whole host of things. And we did research in the pro market to find out how it was affecting things. And then based on that, we said, we've learned quite a bit about this and what some of the issues are. Now let's take that specifically to the beauty schools. And we found that in beauty schools, the generational challenges were really impacting both the students and their learning experience and wanting to finish beauty school, but also instructors and their desire to stay as instructors. They feel a little bit more disrespected. They don't understand it. And it's important as ever to retain the instructors you have. So this was a huge issue, but what we wanted to do was we wanted to paint a 360 view of it. So we did research on the professional side of the market and then the school side of the market. And there are some very, very significant similarities and overlaps, but there are also some differences. Mm-hmm. And then we did the same thing with wellness. And part of the reason we did wellness research was based on the generational divide. We found that wellness was critically important to younger people, whereas most older people weren't thinking about it quite so much because my generation was kind of the walk it off generation, get over it. Mm-hmm. But for a variety of reasons, younger people are much, much more sensitive to their wellness issues, which is healthy. And we wanted to find out how it was playing out in the school marketplace and what the impact of that was as well. So, one piece of research leads to another piece of research. And both of these were studies that really needed to be done because you needed to be able to learn more about it and validate what you probably knew internally, but you couldn't really put your finger on, or to understand some additional nuances, or to understand something that you had never even thought about before. And none of these are specifically tied to making money. Mm-hmm. So for any one organization to do it, it would have been very, very difficult. Mm-hmm. But they're all tied to the health of the industry and making sure that people in our industry really understand what some of these challenges are so we can start dealing with them.
Yeah, obviously the beauty school part of it, I love, and I'm thankful that you all, you see beauty schools and that you, I think a lot of companies, and this is what you said it is that Pivot Point has so many hands in different things. So they're able to have a different perspective of this. But I do think because they're so closely connected to the schools, like that's why we're getting this information and this help is because, they care for the future and want to do this. So I'm thankful that you all are doing this for schools. I think obviously that's more of, my connection and the things that we deal with, every day. And I think so simply, I love that you brought up the generational part of this because I'm 37. So I was raised by parents and like the work ethic and the grind and the hours, right? Like I can go. And that is like, that's how we were raised. Now, I also am old enough or young enough, I should say, to appreciate that I like that people are doing it differently because I don't know that like the juggling and the balancing and the, all of that stuff that was encouraged and that we were all really praised for. Like if you could, how hard could you work? How high up could you go? How fast, how many hours you worked, like used to be like a brag, like people would brag about it. And it was something that was like, really respected because you worked that hard. I do like that this generation below me has shifted that and has taught us some things. There's a lot of jokes online about millennial bosses. And I think that like, I think my specific situation with, being hired in with a fourth generation owner and now my business partner, and now I'm like sandwiched in between of like the fifth generation owner, as well as I'm seeing both sides. I fall right in between in my age. And I just think the part that you're speaking to of if your instructor in beauty school is not willing to accept, or is making fun of your generation for how you are and whatever, there is this like competition where it can become really negative. And I think just being in that space and being able to say like, these are our students. This is who we're working for and with. And yes, they do things differently, but let's just try to understand why they're doing those things and not just like making fun of them. I can't tell you how many times I've heard, and not even just like in beauty school, I mean, online or whatever, of, an older generation, like making fun of this and they're weak and they're soft and they're whatever. And I'm like, well, maybe they're doing life in a different, better way. I think being open-minded to stuff, but I do like that you're putting some facts behind it so that we can really start to see. So what do you think right now, what is the thing that kind of shocked you the most in your research? Was there anything that really stood out to you or surprised you that you were like, oh, okay, I didn't see this coming? Or was it all kind of what you thought was what was going to come back?
Having been doing research for dozens of years, what research really does is it kind of validates most of what you thought. And then you learn some new ways of thinking about things, and then you learn some new information. What most people really don't think about in terms of research is the whole process. And it doesn't start with you sending out a survey. Before we do a research study, we talk to lots and lots of people in the marketplace to find out what are the key things we should be looking into and who should we be talking to about this. And then based on that, and I'll take a step back. So we did another research project on post-pandemic education, and everything I'm mentioning is on the Pivot Point website. And we've written white papers, which is basically we've taken the research and then other information related to it, and we've turned it into a pretty easy to read report that just tells you here's what's happening, here's why we think it's happening.
We'll be able to put that down below in the link in the section on the audio, like the podcast and the YouTube video. So that link should hopefully be down below for you.
Yeah. So everybody knows that the world has changed since the pandemic. And we work with a lot of big brands, virtually all the big brands. And everyone kept saying, how has education changed? How has education changed? And we were talking to them and say, well, how have you seen it change? And they told us what they had seen. But then they always said, well, what are the other guys doing? And there was no answer there. So we took it upon ourselves to do a research project specifically about post-pandemic education and how it's changed. And a lot of stuff came up with the generations. But a lot of stuff came up in terms of how we view things. And pre-pandemic, we led with live events. Mm-hmm. And then post-pandemic now and it's not really post-pandemic, but that's a term people understand. Post-pandemic, we're leading with digital. And digital used to be something that you threw in there to fill in the gaps. And now digital's front and center, and people have gotten very sophisticated in terms of how they use digital. And they have very, very different expectations about how they use digital. And because they're leading with digital, now the types of educators the industry is looking for is changing. Mm-hmm. You perhaps need a different skill set. And people in a world where you can see things on demand, it puts a lot of pressure on live events now, mm-hmm. because do I really need to travel to get this education, or is this education I could get online? So that really informs what the live education has to be to make it different. But you asked about key takeaways. One of the key takeaways is that not just with education, but in our industry as a whole, the pandemic was very, very disruptive. And a lot of the relationships and the networks that you were part of were impacted. And a lot of us are now in a rebuilding stage. And
Mm-hmm.
it's who should my new network be? Who should the people I listen to be? A lot of behaviors have been interrupted. The type of information you got before, or perhaps the type of videos you watched for, it's changed.
Mm-hmm.
And the one key takeaway is that the number one thing people are looking for is a community. And they
Mm-hmm.
want a small community of like minded people they can learn with. Everyone says younger people like learning on their own. They're very capable of learning on their own. They've learned how to do it, they're good at it, they're comfortable with it, but they still like interacting with other people. And for a live event, for example, we found it was very, very important that you bring people together and introduce them and let them work with other people who are like them.
Mm-hmm.
So it may be a smaller group of 15 people, which is optimal now. And
Yeah.
even when you're doing things online used to be big picture, online goes out to everybody. But now that we're using Zoom, we realize that online can also be used to be very, very focused on smaller groups and communities because they learn how to interact. And then when you think about other things that have happened with online, let me ask you: when you watch TV, do you watch it with the captions on?
I don't yet, but I do. There are maybe certain shows that I've started, but I know that this is like a new thing. I do not yet, but I know that this is happening.
So that is the trend. But
Yeah.
think about it. Imagine you want to watch an education video or something like that, and you're on a train and you can't hear very well.
Mm-hmm.
Or imagine if you're speaking a different language and now you can get it simultaneously broadcast in that other language. Or imagine if you have hearing issues. What this whole digital world has done, which were things that really came out in the research, is it's opened up the world to so many people, and there are so many ways to connect. But people are still hungering, not just for the information, but for the connections. They want to be able to turn to the person next to me and say, "This is what I heard. How would you do this?"
Mm-hmm. What I'm so a couple things are standing out to me in what you're saying because I'm in this in between where I'm like I love some of this and some of this stuff is like hard to hear because in the industry that we're in, well, one thing I do want to say is that it does line up with the idea, the smaller learning, the smaller pods or the smaller, whatever we want to call it. That's what we're seeing in the industry as far as salons too, right? Like it's not the huge, like commercial, there's 100 people in there. Like that's not the norm anymore. It is at least here in other areas in the South. I know it's going into these smaller boutique kind of style setting salons, right? So it makes sense that they're wanting that closer community. What I don't love about this is that I want to be able to still have the in person because I think a lot of people in this industry need that as well. Like there are certain, we know, because oh my gosh, you've probably been to 1 million shows, 1 million events, like 1 million conferences in your time. And I've seen things start to change. I think it's like, yeah, is the education why you're there? Is it that time to really like network? Because for me, I'm like, that is the most important part. I am bringing people to ABS, students to ABS this year and teachers and stuff. Like, I'm excited for them to get the classes with people, but I'm most excited for them to meet other people that are other teachers, other instructors, other whatever, and be able to do that. And that's obviously where I thrive. I want that. And so I don't want that to go away. It is interesting to know though that like that's not happening as much and it's going to be harder to kind of get people there unless the intention for the brands, which I'm sure you're sharing all of this information with, is there and that they're doing the networking part right. I hate the word networking. I don't know if that's what I meant. I just mean like the time together, the community.
It's all about the connections and people who really understand how the world has changed. They're offering alternatives.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if I'm going to go to an event and I am not going with anyone, and I don't know anyone who's going to be there, I may not go. I'm
Oh,
not going
I'm
to be
not going.
comfortable.
Like, there's no way I could ever do that.
But imagine if there was kind of a matchmaking service and they found somebody who's kind of your age, your interest. Um, is also wanting to learn about texture, and you could connect with that person before you got there.
I love
Or there
that.
was a meetup or something like that. The difference is people are being very, very purposeful now, the
Mm-hmm.
successful people. They're
Mm-hmm.
saying, we want to build a community and we want to make it work for people. And one of the key challenges is that brands and everybody else realize that you can't just have beauty school and a career. They're part of the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
They're part of these next steps, and we need to make sure that new people in this career, and even people who've been in this career for a long time, are being successful.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just successful in terms of their mental health and their physical health, it's their financial health as well. So now there's a lot of education you're seeing that's specifically focused on financial health, because that will make them good customers and good partners. But the one thing I got a little off track in terms of the research, after you do the survey, what you then do is you go out in the marketplace and you show your results to tons of people and say, okay, here's what I learned. I don't get this. Explain it to me. Provide some context. What am I missing? What have I gotten wrong? And in terms of how we do our research, we always make sure it has that pre-research, the research, and then that post-research. When we go to people in the marketplace, say, explain this to me. Because research isn't about data. It's about actionable insights. And actionable insights are based on really understanding the situation and the context. So that's what we're really trying to do with all this research. We're trying to make it stuff that people can actually use, because we've written it in a way so it's very accessible, but also because we've talked to a lot of people and we kind of know what this number means. It's not that 50% said this, it's 50% said this because.
Yeah. I have a question for you. Do you think that right now, I don't know if everyone's being dramatic or if it's just now it's just common to be like, oh, the industry has never seen anything like this before. They've never, whatever. Like how long you've been in the industry, I love like all of the other industries that you've worked in as well. Are we in crisis, or are we just like living in crisis now? Or is it, there's certain people we talk to, salon owners, it's never been this bad. It is a generational thing. Maybe too, the answer to that question is it depends on who you ask. But what is your Steve Reiss feeling of where we are at in the industry with all of this change and all of the things that are happening?
So before my time, I understand that chain salons came into the industry and people were going, oh my God, chain salons are going to ruin the industry. And then people said, oh, suites and independent contractors are going to ruin the industry. The reality in both those situations were they really didn't have anything to do with the salon industry. They had to do with the world. If you think about all the people in the world who are independent contractors now, there are lawyers and accountants and a whole host of people. It's not just people in the salon industry. And they're independent contractors because the mindset has changed and because the tools are there, especially with keeping your information in the cloud and some of the apps that are available, things like that. The situation that we're dealing with here, yeah, there's a lot going on. There's stuff going on politically. There's stuff going on in terms of generations. There's stuff going on with the marketplace and financially. But the reality is they're going on everywhere. Now, the difference is that the salon industry is a little bit different than other industries because it's an industry that is a lot of individuals. I mean, when you got into this industry, you got in to do your own thing. And you can do your own thing in a salon or in a suite, but the reality is it's a certain type of personality. And where we internalize things, we talk about things. We are emotional people, which is one of the greatest strengths of people in the salon industry because they're incredibly empathetic and they are incredibly important and helpful in their communities in terms of how they give back and support others. But that means we also tend to internalize all these other things. Every single career is dealing with this right now. We're familiar with our own reality, and that's what we care about. That being said, everything has a positive and a negative to it. And you can look at all the other things that have happened in the industry, and we just have to figure out what's going on, understand it as well as we can, and then figure out the positives so we can be ahead of it. Somebody said to me a long time ago, you're either the windshield or the bug. And it's better to be the windshield. And being the windshield is really predicated on knowing what's going on and then understanding what your options are and talking to other people who can help you. So yeah, it's a very tough time, and there are a lot of things we have absolutely no control over or limited control over. So let's focus on the things we do have some control over.
Yeah, I still get really excited because I think I get to see it in the beginning phases so much that I think the things that will bum me out or that I can get focused on a little bit of negativity is definitely all of the bigger scale things. But like in my day, when I see someone that is, this is something that happened recently that I'm like, oh my gosh, this just gives me hope again. And I'm like so excited about everything. But there's a high school that we work with. I mean, it's right down the road. And their salutatorian just enrolled at beauty school with us. And I'm like, do you know how happy it makes me that like, we're going to go present her scholarship, her award, or like the stuff. But like, she's the salutatorian coming here. Like that didn't happen 13 years ago when I was coming into this. You know what I mean? Like, it's just seeing that excites me so much because I'm like, no, but look at all this good and how awesome that is. And like the way that, that it's changing. I mean, I'm optimistic about those things anyways, but that makes me so happy. And I'm like, wow, this is really, we're really turning a corner. And then if you just look a little bit of a different way, you can be like, oh no, but is this going to be okay? Like, are we going to have an industry for her to go into, and what's that going to look like for her? And are we going to live up to, everything that we've, said that the industry is, and be able to like keep all these promises? I still think we can. And I still think it's like the best career choice ever. I got my makeup done this weekend at an event that I was at, and the girl was like, got her master's degree in like occupational therapy, and she changed her mind and like came and did this. And I'm like, that just gives me so much hope. And I think that's what you were saying too in the beginning of all of this, was that the trades are standing out now. The whole decision of like, when I was going to college, it was, what college are you going to? Only option, and now it being like, okay, well, it's much more supported. I'm really, really happy about that. I think that is going to lead into a lot more of not a divide. I've thought about this often of like, there's the two different types of students, right? Like, so you have the ones that are like the free spirit, and I want to just go travel and I want to live and I want to, we have that. And then you have somebody that has like very specific goals. So I want to do this by year one, this by year two. And I think that it's going to make these pockets of different salons that are very, by the book, and they're the ones that are going to be doing everything right, and they're going to be, checking all their boxes and all this stuff, and you're going to have the free spirits. And I'm like so thankful that we can all like coexist in that. So I'm excited to see the way that this changes, with there being more of a push of like academia in this as well.
Yeah, and if you think about the younger generation, what they care about, they care about flexibility. Mm-hmm. They care about being respected, on their own terms. These are things that careers in beauty excel at.
100%. Do you identify with any of this research with the generational stuff? How are you feeling right now at this point in your life? Like, do you feel like you're like, oh, I can't even relate to that? Or you're like, oh, wow, they're doing it better?
Well, I think they're doing it differently. It's hard to say what's better. I have two children, and they're early mid-20s. So I've grown up with a lot of this. Mm-hmm. But I'll give you an example. My generation, we were very process oriented. You have to go A to B to C to D, and that was the way to do it. Mm-hmm. Now, today's generation realizes that maybe there are shortcuts, and maybe I don't need to take those steps. So in some cases, it's a huge benefit, thinking about things differently. The challenge is, if you don't learn all the process steps and something changes, it's very, very hard for you to reset yourself. Mm-hmm. So there are pluses and minuses for both approach. And I think you really hit on this. The most important thing is not looking at the world and saying this is the way the world is. Looking at the world and saying this is how I see the world based on my experience, but I know other people see it differently. Now, it's probably more incumbent on older people who have a little bit more experience to be the ones to reach out to the younger people, because the younger people are at a different point in their life and they're still taking everything in and they're still trying to figure out exactly who I am. So a lot of the change is going to have to come from the older people, and they're going to have to recognize that it's not better or worse. It's just different.
When you're like putting this information out, this research and stuff, have you had anybody like react to it negatively, or had any like anybody try to argue what you found, or why it's still not the right way, or anything like that? Or is everyone like, yeah, this is kind of what I thought?
So Beauty Changes Lives had an industry leader roundtable, and the topic was the generational divide. And we had two groups. We had top CEO types who are generally older, and then we had up and coming types, what we call trailblazers. And they went in two separate rooms and they talked about each other. And the key conversation point was, what would I like the other group to know about me? And it was very interesting because in their own individual groups, it's like, well, these people don't do this and they don't listen and they won't let me have a seat at the table and they're not patient, whatever else it was. When you get them together and they each explain their point of view, people started looking at it very, very differently. And they said, yeah, I get that. It makes sense. So, the intent is not to change anyone's mind. It's just to open up people's minds a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And
things happen gradually. And to start thinking about, who you are, why you're doing this, what your experience have been. It's kind of like somebody says, it's very hard to hate someone after you've walked a mile in their shoes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. I have this argument, and I'm so thankful that we're having this time to talk about all of this, because I love that you even mentioned before, this research and understand this, or that round table that you had, that leadership, like all of that. That's not the $1 million idea. It wasn't like Pivot Point did this and now Pivot Point has $1 million extra because they had this time together. No, it's about what that's going to do for the industry in the future. I'm so thankful that you all are doing this and that this is happening. And I think it's really important that beauty school students, schools, if you're in this industry, that that this is happening. Like, I know, and you probably feel this. I don't know if you're like, I'm screaming it, I'm telling everyone, like, we're doing this, but it's really important that we get this message out that it is happening, because I don't want to be a part of something that we're all just, figuring it out. And I don't know, we'll see what happens. Like, I don't want to operate like that. I want to operate with people that know and are having those hard conversations and doing it in such a fun way of being like, we're going to bring these two generations together and we're going to explain, let them see what the other one is feeling and what that actually looks like. So I'm so thankful. This is so much of like my heart, and it's such like a passion project, but it does matter. And we have a joke like that. I put more hours into all these other things that it's like, I'm literally like losing money by all the other things that I'm like, just being like, I want to know more about this, or I want to learn. It's not the $1 million idea, but I don't know how to explain it. I think that like it does still matter in like the big scheme of the business. Like you said, Pivot Point has so many different arms and is reaching so many different people that they're the exact person that needs to be doing this. And I'm so excited and thankful that you all are, because it does matter. And I just think about the students, 10 years from now that will be coming in and just being like, hopefully easier, there will be an easier mix. I think about the teachers at the school and the ones, because as you said, it's so important to have instructors in the schools, right, that have the knowledge and they've been there those are our, like, that's who we need so bad. Like, we need those people that they're reliable and they're operating the schools and all those things. The ones that are so fun and will be like, reach out and do fun. Like, the younger students love it to see the older teachers be more like them, like when we'll do little silly dance competitions or whatever. I mean, they just like die over it and they're like, okay, like they see me, they respect me. And I think that that's a big part of it too. So I'm just happy that you guys are doing all of this and it's touching a lot of the things that we're trying to figure out as well.
Oh, thank you. You can never be wrong if you do the right thing.
Yes, 100%. So I'm excited that we had this time today, Steve. Thank you so much for being here with us. And I want to make sure, though, that the one thing that I want everyone to know is I want to make sure that we have like the links for all of this research so that we're able to share that. Is this something that would be interesting for beauty school students or people coming into the industry at all? Or is this going to be more for people that are already in it to see what's happening?
Well, we've written our white papers for people in the industry. That being said, if you have students who are the type of students who really want to know everything and are really motivated, there's absolutely nothing wrong with them reading this.
Yeah.
The more you know, the better off you are.
Yes. Well, I'm so thankful. And like I said, I want to make sure we have all the links to do this because I think it just matters for people to know that are in the industry that like you guys are the ones doing this. And if they want to be a part of it, if they want to be more a part of the research or anything like that, how do we get them connected?
What I would say is we should work through the beauty schools, and you're the ones who are connecting with them. So I would say reaching out to anybody in the industry out there. If there's anything you think is important, information, resources, anything like that, reach out to us. And we probably have a pretty good handle on where to find it. And if we don't, then maybe it's our next research topic. And then we leave it to you to figure out how you want to share it with your communities.
Well, good. Well, thank you for all of that. Before I let you go, you know that I asked you this, I think, the first time we recorded. I always like to ask if there's any advice that you have for somebody that's thinking about coming into this industry. If you could talk to, the 17-year-old that's in, school right now that's thinking about doing this, or the person that has made a career choice to go to college and is thinking about coming into the beauty industry, what would you tell them? What advice do you have for them?
Well, it's broader than just beauty schools. It's kind of life advice. And there really is not one person on this earth who you cannot learn something valuable from. Everybody has something to offer. The challenge is you have to make yourself available. You have to pay attention. You have to listen. You have to respect them because we're all coming from different places and we all have different experiences. And a lot of those experiences you may not realize it will be valuable for you, but it might be valuable for you. If not now, then maybe down the road. And it's kind of like in Ted Lasso, be curious, stay curious.
I love that. I love that you gave life advice and not just beauty school advice. That makes me happy. We're going to clip it and save it forever, Steve.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much. And I hope you have the best day ever. And thank you for being here. So Steve from Pivot Point, like I said, we'll have all the links down below so that you can follow what they're doing. Beauty Changes Lives as well, an organization that you mentioned. If you're not following them, make sure you're following Beauty Changes Lives, especially if you're interested in going to beauty school. We share and post the scholarships all the time. I know Pivot Point has a new Leo Passage scholarship that is out. And so I know all over my social media, you'll see us sharing those, but make sure you follow Beauty Changes Lives as well, because they're doing amazing work in this industry also. So thank you so much, Steve, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.